All right, we are back. Arrog's here, setting aside his birthday festivities, at least for a couple hours, to be here for the top four and the finals. So we have the finals upcoming. We've got the team of Robkin, Riederman, and Powell versus Connor Mullaly, Maxx, Kominowski, and Theodore Jung. That is going to be the finals we've got for you momentarily. Let's put up the prize pool so you can see what's on the line for these players. Lots of cash. I think it's 6,000 for the winning team. There you go. There's 6,000 winning team, 3,000. So $1,000 per player on the line here, as well as NRG series points and 2 sets of invites. That's right, 2. The winning team all get invited to the Nerd Rage Championship at the end of the year and the DreamHack Showdown in Atlanta in November. So pretty big deal. I'm not sure which one of those invites the players would value better. That probably comes down to the individual, but lots to contest here, lots on the line. Anurag, you're at the finals of the event. You're playing for invites. Does pressure make any difference between round 3 and the finals? Are you more nervous, or are you just kind of the same either way? Is it one match? Are you one of the one match at a time people?
I like to pretend I am, but the
Okay.
reality is I'm just a human being and looking at a large sum of money, but more importantly, these invites, it can get to me, right? The good news is that, if I was at the event right here, you'd be on my side, so you'd stabilize me, Joe. You'd be like, get yourself together. You're a grown 30-year-old man. You don't have time to be afraid. We're gonna win this one. We're gonna crush him. Like that. That's exactly how I envision you being, Joe.
That is exactly, I am absolutely not one of those people that's like one match at a time. It's all good. We're just like having a good time. I would super be stressing,
I mean,
but
I can totally see it. Like just Joe with the war paint, 2 strikes on one cheek, 2 strikes on the other. Just that would be great. Honestly, it's funny because Joe, I know you offered to team with me at other events, and that is something that I definitely need to collect on. And I will just secretly bring in like a little bit of glitter for us to wear. And it's camaraderie, right? It's which team knows themselves better, and they're clearly going to be. It's the best team wins. So teamwork is the name of the game here in this event, and I'm excited for the finals.
What teamwork? Yeah, I offered to come across the country
Look,
to
I
play
know,
in the team event with you, and you're like, you know what? I'm not that interested. I'm going to be there. I'm just not that interested in playing with you. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, and instead, if you think about it, I spent the whole day with your voice, in my ear, listening to you talk all day.
Yeah,
Think about
it would
that.
have been
That's
the
a pretty
same.
big commitment right there.
It was the same. You committed the whole trip. You just didn't play. I mean, you got your thing. You got if those of you who don't know, Anurag has assembled his guerrilla coverage of the SCG Con events for the last few months. He's having a good time doing that. So you should definitely follow him if you're interested in the coverage of those events. I've participated as well in that. And then I suppose you should also follow Nerd Rage Gaming for further updates on our events here. While I hear in the ear, I'm being congratulated. That right there is exactly how many times I remembered to request you guys to follow yesterday. That being 1. But all right, players are shuffling up, getting ready for the final. So thanks for being here with us this morning. Once this event is over with, we will take a break, and then we'll pick up the modern event, which is starting around about right now. So we may actually be able to pick it up in round 2, unless this match goes very long. Maybe we'll start in round 3. But we will have Magic coverage all day long today. So thanks for being here. Let's get this finals going.
All right. Piper on what I say is a variant of Izzet Delver, featuring 0 copies of Delver of Secrets and multiple copies of Ledger Shredder. And then on the other side is young Theodore Jung, playing a more stock list with the full 4 copies of Delver of Secrets. Outside of that, I mean, these decks are going to play largely the same. There are a couple differences here that make a big deal for the Shredder version, which is, I believe there are 2 main deck copies of Unholy Heat, very good at sniping off 6/6 and below Murktide regions, which late game is something that could definitely happen. But otherwise, I think we're going to see a lot of back and forth here with respect to just developing your mana, playing your iterations, playing your threats, trading 1 for 1. Actually, now looking at the list, there's a really big difference between the 2 decks that I think is important, and that is the full 4 copies of Wasteland on one side, on the Delver side, versus just the 2 on the Shredder side. So that's the denomination that I think I would use to distinguish these 2 decks, is Piper's playing the Shredder version. Theo's playing the Delver version. So yeah, Wasteland being a 2 of, Days being a 3 of, these are
Mhm.
it's an open deck list at this point, and these are, this is information that you can take advantage of for sure.
Right. So speaking of information you can take advantage of, do you think Piper's giving anything away with that island tattoo? Just telling the opponents, "Oh, I'm playing blue mana."
Yeah, I used to go around with the Sensei's divining top mat, and then I realized that people would just like peg me for playing miracles. So I switched over to a Deathrite Shaman playmat for one event, and literally, this is years ago, so this will show you how much. But turn 2, Phyrexian Revoker on Deathrite Shaman, and I was like, yeah, I'm always doing
Wow.
this.
I can't believe that actually happened.
Proceed to get stomped that match still. So
Yep. All right, so no plays in the first couple turns here. No creatures anyway for Theodore and Piper. Maybe a little bit surprising, but respecting each other's plays and just sitting on removal, I guess.
yeah, it's kind of interesting, but I really do think these Izzet mirrors will just boil down to, well, any exchange that doesn't result in a 1-for-1, so that means resolving expressive iteration, that means resolving, well, I mean, I guess that's really it. Or just like, maybe getting like a critical days off at the right time.
Mhm.
Mystic Sanctuary on expressive iteration will also be pretty important here. And that's where, something like uh, Wasteland will play a pretty big factor, just in the sense that if Theo's able to develop his own mana base more than, Piper is, then we could see like just multiple castings of expressive iteration, and that would be used to
Mhm.
pull ahead here.
Right. All right. So 2 Delvers here for Theodore. One gets scratched off by an Unholy Heat. If you're looking for the deck lists, they are or should all be available at this point publicly on MTG Melee. You can find all the deck lists for every team and player in the event. Let me rephrase that. Everyone that submitted their deck online, if people there are a few players usually who hand in paper deck lists. Those ones may not be typed in yet. I'm unaware whether that's the case or not. But yeah, this information is now publicly available to anyone who wants to see it. And as Ari was saying, we're seeing Delvers versus not Delvers. So I would think then the player playing Delvers really wants to get out ahead, because Shredder versus Delver is going to be favored in the mid to late game.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, like, looking at Piper's hand, her hand really does embody what I think the matchup will boil down to from her side, which is that we're just playing blue red control. Like, we are playing Drago. We have multiple copies of Pyroblast to handle problematic spells like Iteration and Murktide Regent. We
Mhm.
already have a Bolt here to tame this Flip Delver of Secrets. And then after that, it's just making sure that, we align our answers with the right threats and
Mhm.
spells. And look at that, even at this point, we're taking 3 points of damage. I mean, we're playing the controlled role here. This is
Yeah.
important to stop, yes. And,
Yeah.
I like this too, because we're playing around strange things like, maybe double days or things like that. The Delver is Delver. We can answer that whenever, but
Mhm. And we are going to see the Bolt take down the Delver here post combat. So would you say if a Pyroblast hits anything besides an Iteration or a Murktide, was that potentially undesirable? Is that something that you really have to think hard about if that's worthwhile?
yeah, I would have to smell blood in the water to target like a Brainstorm
Mhm.
or a Force of Will. Well, the Force of Will, okay, that Force is different because that is another 2-for-1 exchange that I'm
Right.
pretty happy about. I mean, in post-board games that will be a lot rarer, but this
Right.
might be a little bit brutal here for Theo, as yep, yeah, iteration finally going to resolve.
Yeah, and the Pyroblast getting dispatched by Daze, and so we're already on turn 4, and Daze is going to lose a little bit of its value. This is not the spiciest iteration of all time, but I'm sure Piper will take it.
hmm And what's interesting is that Piper did have the option to cast this on turn 2, but you can see the massive amount of respect here for Days. It's going to play a big role in when spells are going to be cast and how spells will be cast in this
Mhm.
matchup. Day is just one of those iconic cards in Legacy, has been around forever and has been, the subject of a lot of discussion, but it's a very powerful effect. And it, in my opinion, makes Legacy what Legacy is today. It's
Mhm.
just a free counterspell for Spike that radically shifts what you're allowed to play in your deck, how you play it, when you play it, what colors, things like that. So
All right, so Ledger Shredder is the draw off of the Mishra's Bauble. Piper did have 2 in hand, did deploy both of them, trying to just cycle into some better stuff. And having those 2 fetch lands in play, there is the filtering element added in from knowing what the top card of your deck is.
Right. And
So
looking at just like hands in general, I think Theo's hand suddenly seems to be falling off here as there's a copy of Daze Bolt. More importantly, I don't see a way for us to generate large amounts of advantage here. The
mhm,
fact that this first iteration has resolved to me, it just sounds like Piper's going to snowball off of that, right? Next turn we can put our fourth land into play, fetch a Mystic Sanctuary, cast the iteration again,
mhm.
and then start putting creatures and then start converting in a meaningful way. But it just starts with generating more resources, breaking that dynamic of I'll play one card, you answer it with one card. I'll play another card, you answer it with another card here. No, this is a strict. I'm drawing 2 cards here, and unless you draw 2 cards too, you know, I'm just gonna drown you out in this
Right.
advantage because Delver really only does the 1-for-1 exchange for the most part. So
All right, so here we have Shredder coming in. Uh, Connive on the way. So Piper doesn't have an excess land to discard yet, but we'll see how far we get here. Okay. Shredder is going to get picked off. So there will still be Connive, but now discarding a spell is less relevant. And it's going to happen anyway. A Ponder goes. So that's going to tell Theodore that the Piper's hand is pretty good.
yeah, it's funny because I was talking to a couple Delver aficionados, and they're like, "Yeah, I really don't like Ledger Shredder because every time I discard a spell, it's just a good spell," and I'm
Mhm.
just like, "That's the problem you have with your deck."
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's those that sounds like someone you don't want to even be talking to. We do see impressive work already for the team of Robkin, Riederman, and Powell as the number 7 seed. So they've had to win on the draw here in these elimination matches. Mullaly, Kominowski, and Jung as the number 1 overall seed doesn't have to deal with that. But Piper looking in good position to be able to break serve here in game 1. Certainly
hmm
not behind at this point. Another bolt takes out a Shredder with Connive on the stack.
Yeah, it's super interesting because I almost wonder if, like, in this sort of matchup, like, you want to be on the draw. At the end of the day, what ends up happening, right? Like, you are playing a pseudo mirror match, but you're slightly bigger, which means you're going to be very good at stabilizing the board. Unless you get completely run over by like 3 wastelands or something. Um, if it's unless it's something crazy like that, then I think the average case scenario is that you'll just be able to draw games out
Mhm,
and actually leverage the extra resource by being on the draw. So I almost wonder if this is like, I mean, I don't know, like Days is also a thing. And personally, like I would still always take the play, but the thought crosses my mind. Is that
mhm.
okay?
Right. No, I understand. Okay, so we've still done a fair amount of trading here. Not much advantage to be gained. Piper does have another iteration in hand. No one has landed or even cast a Murktide yet, and there's still Pyroblast waiting in hand for on Piper's side. So still in the early game, I suppose you could say. People ask, "Oh, well, why are we watching Legacy?" So here, I'll explain to you the thought process. The Pioneer is the green mirror. That's not the most interactive, exciting Magic. Modern potentially living in versus Murktide or the mirror here in Legacy. And the choice was made to watch Legacy because we have the modern 5K starting up after this event. So we're gonna be watching modern all the rest of the day. So we're gonna get another match of Legacy in while we can. So that is why we're here. But as soon as this game ends, we will switch over.
Wow, that's a wasteland.
Is it really? I guess you're right.
I mean, I can only assume it's a wasteland because it's the only non-colored whatever it is.
Mhm,
But that is sweet. I have also never seen this card before, but just like by sheer knowledge and raw willpower, I've suddenly figured out this is a wasteland. I don't know. I also do think that as resident sleeper, that is it Delver is with iterations and Murktides, and Joe's like, what is resident sleeper? I think this mirror match specifically is it's quite interactive. It's
mhm,
very back and forth. There's a lot of, navigating it around key spells. There's a lot of navigating your own key spells. There's a lot of, do I have a read on days here? Do I jam my Murktide region? Do I play around Unholy Heat? Like a lot of certain things that, make this specific matchup very intricate and very delicate,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of how expressive iteration and Murktide are in the format.
Right. Okay. So 8/8 Murktide into play for Piper Powell. Another one in Piper Powell's hand is tremendous right now.
Agree.
Here is a Murktide from Theodore that arguably Piper doesn't even need to counter because the follow-up Murktide will completely outclass Theodore's.
Mm-hmm. And funny enough here is that if you do Pyroblast the Murktide here, you just get double days, and that's actually that's a big deal here, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you have the option to play around it, just untap, take it slow, do a thing. These dazes are also very dead right now, anyways. So them being able to convert to protect arguably your strongest threat is a
Mm-hmm.
good thing.
Right. Okay. So we saw the exchange there of lands, and Piper with a mana, okay, is going to Pyroblast the Murktide and run into the double days that you were talking about.
Yeah, see, that's really interesting because the decision to the decision to Wasteland there is just to deny Mystic Sanctuary. That makes a lot of sense here because Mystic Sanctuary on Expressive Iteration is pretty backbreaking in this low resource game state, but that enables this specific line, which is all right, double days on the Pyroblast, Murktide Regent is in play.
Okay. Brainstorm for Piper Powell first.
Uh-oh.
Now, kind of wants another land. Oh, I guess found a Force of Will. So say finding a land was finding a way to play around days for this follow-up Murktide. I guess even if this Murktide gets countered, it'll still pump the crap out of the one that's in play, which is pretty good.
This is so dirty. I rarely get to see these large Murktide regions, and I mean like big beef, super value 13/13s come into play because Murktide region is so strong, it just normally just dies on the spot always. But now that I see it in play, it's just a little bit. I'm just laughing a little that this is just a 2-mana 13/13 with flying.
Yes, indeed. We're playing fair here. And this is just I mean, this is so fair. It's even legal in other formats, lower powered formats. So here's a casual attack for 13 here, which
with forcible backup too.
Theo can't really afford to block here. Needs to draw a removal spell for the big Murktide. And we know that's not exactly live, but he doesn't know that, and he's gonna give himself a chance here.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This game one just has not felt close at all. Piper had a very strong hand and then converted that into just a very dominant showing here. This is great, right? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Is you find your resources, you pull ahead with the key cards, and then you make sure you find ways to resolve exactly what you have here. And Theo's going to pick up the cards here. This is straightforward.
Okay, so Piper will pick up game one. You can see the bubbles filling in there. Zoe also picked up game one, and so did Connor Mullally. So we do have a split but for the Mullaly Kominowski Jung team, they only won 1 out of 3 games going first. So that's not ideal to kick things off. And now we'll see a little bit of Pioneer here. The Mono Green Mirror, Jesse Robkins on the play for game number 2, which in this matchup, game number 2, very similar to game number 1.
Oh yeah? Why is that?
Well, the players, not just these players, basically every player has in this format has gone way overboard on Karn Wish sideboards. So these green decks we've seen, I would say 4 is the maximum number of sideboard cards you actually would see boarded in, and that was like a month ago. But the decks have been developing, and that number's gone fewer and fewer. And now we're looking. These two players have 1 and 2 Voracious Hydras between the two of them to board in, and maybe Portable Hole, and that's it. The rest is all sideboard cards that stay in the sideboard to be wished for with Karn the Great Creator.
Oh yeah, I like this. All right, cool. So a little bit of camaraderie between the two teams is now if I was sitting next to you, Joe, and you high five my opponent, I would look you straight in the eye and be like, "Is that you, Johnny? Are you a sleeper agent? Just intentionally throwing matches this whole day? Is that why we're here? Bottom seed going into the last round, Joe?
No
or is
chance.
it just my 0-8 record on the day?
No, you don't have to worry about that. I will not be high fiving or congratulating our team opponents in any fashion whatsoever. I'll be conspiring to have judges come haul them off for unknown penalties that they didn't actually deserve just to try and steal a win. That's the way
Ooh,
I
what is it?
roll.
Greatness at any cost? Well,
Yeah,
actually,
something
I
like
do have
that.
one question for you, right?
All right.
And that is so. All right, if these mono green mirrors are basically the same 75s over and over again, we'll
Yeah.
say like 73 out of 75. I did my homework. I looked at the deck list, and the only difference in game one is one player has 2 copies of Beseju, and one player has 1 copy of Beseju. And while that is something very small, given that Pioneer will ultimately be the DreamHack Atlanta format, it will be the Pro Tour format, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have to imagine that it does matter, right? So, like,
Sure.
walk me through in this matchup. If you're in either seat, how do you get an advantage in this mirror match where you're playing a lot of the same cards? I mean, is it something as simple as just draw better, or is there actual macro strategy that you would implement in this matchup?
I mean, I think it's going to come down a lot to just who's able to build up more devotion, who can draw better, who can get Karn activations going early. There is some interaction in the cyborg games that you do have the capability of killing your opponent's elves with a couple of cards, but that's not even all that likely to come up. And these are not. I mean, this is one of the reasons why we started on Legacy. This is just not a matchup where you're making a lot of strategic plays based on what the opponent has. Like if you can get an early pressure creature out to pressure the opponent's planeswalkers or their life total, I mean that's fine. You're going to do it, but at the same time, those creatures all have high devotion anyway. This is I don't think we can paint too pretty a picture of the interaction in this matchup. It just doesn't really exist.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean that is also like that is a part of Magic too. Is sometimes you just need to put tie your shoelaces and hit the hardest. That I totally understand that. That being said, then talk to me about like the ideal curve. Obviously, like turn 1 mana dork, and then what comes after that?
Yeah, I think we're looking for okay. So turn one mana dork or oath of, Nissa, but obviously neither one there. And so yeah, Connor already with a much better start with an elf. We're looking for mana production. There's a Wolf Willow Haven. That's something. We're looking for Old Growth Troll to boost Devotion or Kiora. Would be our ideal 3 mana plays. Oath into another mana producer is also fine. And then Cavalier is again devotion and extra land, but really we're looking at both players are looking for Karn and then mana to wish for something that can overwhelm the opponent. That's what we're doing.
Gotcha. Well, this is quite a terrifying start if you're talking about mana production, because Connor really has not 1, not 2, but 3 mana dorks on turn 2, and we're untapping with a bajillion mana. No, not 5, not 6, a literal bajillion.
Yes, indeed. So what does Connor have here? Because we're not. I mean, attacking with a bunch of little damage here is not going to amount to much. He's definitely going to need a real threat, whatever that may be. And Jesse hasn't stumbled on mana too much, so this will get going here as well. There's a Nykthos. All right, that's generating only 1 extra mana at this point. And now 2, and that's a Kiora, so that can double it up.
All right, I mean, this is a pretty good start here.
Mm-hmm.
Up a game already. Opponent doesn't have that much mana. You're actually almost like what at this point, close to double. No, with the Kiora too, it's going to be a lot more. So this might be the storm turn.
All right, so Old Growth Troll drawing a card through Kiora. 2 mana with Nykthos goes up to 8.
5 and 3, not 6 and 2.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the Storm the Festival. Okay, so this can get a little crazy here. We'll see. Karn and Nykthos would be pretty stellar here for Connor. Kiora and Karn would be functionally identical.
Yeah, this is just a really dominant showing. I mean, you said draw better, but I don't know. I mean, if this much is left, so another Oath of Nissa. Okay, and there's Karn the Great Creator. This Planeswalker, when it came out, like in War of the Spark, it spelled nothing but misery for me. I remember, like back in the day, there was no prismatic ending for control decks. There were no good creatures to play in control decks. And turn 1, Ancient Tomb Chalice. Turn 2, Ancient Tomb. Karn the Great Creator was a problem for me in Legacy. Good to see that it's still causing headaches in other formats. It's not just me now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's still a powerhouse. It is an enabler of all of the kind of combo draws in the Green Devotion deck. there aren't so many artifacts to shut down now. However, the static ability can be relevant in the mirror when both players do have carnality. It's not guaranteed to matter, but sometimes.
Yeah, I heard the new trendy combo that, I was asking you about desperately right before this match started was what involving Teferi, who slows the sunset,
Mhm.
and the chain veil, and so having your own Karn to stop that infinite combo is quite nice. But the fact that this deck has a second infinite combo is also a little bit wow.
Mhm. All right. So with 2 mana floating here, and there's God Pharaoh's statue is the choice. Not going to come down this turn, which is good news for Jesse Robkin. God Pharaoh statue increases the cost of everything by 2 for your opponent, and Storm the Festival for Jesse. So I mean, Jesse is with a ideal hit here. May not be out of this, but it is
What does
looking
ideal hit mean?
bad. Well, it's going to have to involve access to additional mana. I'm not even sure there's enough devotion here for her to get anything going, really. I said that
Mm.
maybe preemptively. Uh,
Referencing like a Kiora coming into play off the storm.
yeah, or a Narset plus a Karn, that would regenerate a decent amount of mana. But yeah, this Nykthos just isn't making enough mana for Jesse to be able to do anything substantial. And now Connor's board, even if he blanks somehow, he has attackers on the board. So Jesse's planeswalkers, if there are any, aren't going to survive the turn. So yeah, this is probably already snowballed out of control. And you see Jesse kind of slowing down on the Storm the Festival, trying to figure out what the right choices are. But there just may not be any right choices at this point.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned you alluded to something like a Voracious Hydra
Mhm.
as a card that could come in, but that doesn't even seem to do it because I mean it's going to come in as a 0/1.
Yeah.
That's not
No, that's not going
powerful.
to cut it here. All right. So we see the selections here. Yeah. Karn and Kiora, which is, generally not bad. But what even.
Putting a Planeswalker into play at a board with 8 power is
Mhm.
not ideal.
No.
But if there's a player who can come out of this kind of situation, it definitely is Jesse Robkins. So let's see what happens here. The follow up is. And keep in mind, this is one of the benefits to playing in a team tournament is that even if you do have a bad day, sometimes your partner is just going to go 8-0 and you're just going to, crush anyways. I have definitely been heavy in team tournaments before. In this situation, you get a little slack here. So even if this game doesn't go well, that's okay. You just slide over and you help your teammates out playing, modern and
Mhm.
legacy. So still a lot of work to be done here. The job doesn't end, but yeah, damping sphere is a good maybe the best that we can get from this board state.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to shut off the Nykthos. It's going to shut off the ability to chain infinite spells. It's not going to change the fact that there is a heck of a lot more power in play for Connor than there is for Jesse.
Given the
Something.
board the way it is right now, what are your attacks?
Well, it depends on what Connor decides to wish for. It may be a place for Sky Sovereign to come in and then pick off the Karn, and then the rest of the creatures attack down the Kiora. That would be a one way to go. And that would leave the Damping Sphere on the board. Jesse with, nothing going on.
Mhm. At this stage of the game, too, I almost wonder it's just like rather than make big moves to end the game on the spot here, I'm so far ahead that I just need to contain the other side of the board. And that takes priority over even advancing my own. But then
Mhm.
if I get to make a couple like minor adjustments or developments to my board, I'll take it. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Right.
need to play like I don't know, what's the most expensive spell that you could think of right here? Like we didn't we tutor up a God Pharaoh statue
We did,
earlier?
yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
like
and
that's
so
not necessary to play on this turn. We can save it for later. Right now, I just want to make sure that I can't lose this game. This is my game to lose. So
mhm.
what do I do in this board state?
Yeah, well, certainly if you're trying not to lose here, playing God for a statue is a great way to do that. So here, that is 1 mana. That's 4 more plus the untap, so that's 6. There is the statue. And then we're gonna see an attack here. Okay, kill Karn, take 4 off Kiora. Connor's Karn still able to activate here. Yeah,
Do
and
you agree with the attack here, getting rid of the
yeah,
cards?
I think that's fine. Yeah, animates God Pharaoh statue just to have a blocker. And yeah, Jesse is out of luck here, I think. So even elves cost 3 mana now. Damping Sphere is going to hinder things. This is I'm going to say this is over enough that I'm comfortable if we switch to another format. If one of the other games is in contention right now, this looks like Connor Mullaly is going to take this down 2-0.
Okay.
It's maybe not guaranteed, but it is likely enough that if we have another match that's more in doubt, that we can consider making a swap here. Okay.
I was gonna say that like something like a Boseiju might be a sneaky way to bypass the God Pharaoh statue's
Yeah.
extra mana tax, but looking at Jesse's hand, I don't think she has one. So
Yeah. Okay. So the play is just another Wolfwell Haven and still at 20 life.
the life total is
But
definitely
these
not the metric,
right.
right? Yeah.
No, yeah, it is not. Yeah, these decks can win outside of combat. However, the Epic Sphere on the other side is going to make that much harder. And so we actually may see this game come down to life totals. So now this turn, does Karn animate God Pharaoh statue for a big attack, or does it wish up something like Meteor Golem or Sky Sovereign? We will see what Connor decides. The word is that there isn't really a tense game to switch over to. Legacy is shuffling right now between games. So this is where we're going to stay for the moment.
Yep. And as a heads up, it looks like Legacy is actually going to game 3. So Delver of Secrets, good old tried and true, showing up here. And yeah, this is crazy. I mean, if you're in Connor's position, you know, it's feeling pretty good here. You're in the finals on a very dominant board position. And yeah, looks like Jesse's saying, hey, I need to go and help my team out here. So let's check out the other formats then. Yeah.
All right. All right. So that will do it for Pioneer. So Director Dave, we're going to switch over to Modern. Okay, Modern it is. Zoe Riederman versus Maxx Kominowski. We've got Living End with a sizable board position, which is good because there's unlicensed Hearst, which means it's going to be harder for it to get any bigger. And that's done.
All right. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, Living End just kind of
Legacy it is. So those of you asking for Legacy, you got your wish. That's the only match left to go in this event. So Piper
how
Powell and
fitting.
Theodore Jung will play
How
out
fitting.
game 3.
Remember back in the day when we used to be Legacy one tricks? I mean, you know, for me, it's still somewhat the same. For you, you decided to go out and do great things. But here we are, Joe.
Yeah, this is right. This is where we're destined to end up.
Finals match worth what? There's a total of $10,000 in prizes for these two teams alone over the course of a great weekend at this 20K here in St. Louis. This is sweet. All right, you got to tell me right now. Don't look at the hands. Close your eyes. I can tell if you're not. Who do you think is going to win this game 3?
I'm going with the player that's not playing Delvers, which is Piper Powell. That is going to be my prediction.
All right. Pressure. Well, have you ever heard of the Caster's Curse? Yeah,
yes, I have.
Just to balance it out, to keep things even, and also just so that I have something to just so that I know when I win, I can rub it in. I'm gonna say that Theo's gonna win this one. There we go.
All right, we'll see.
Little bit of rivalry here in the booth here. Also in the audience, I want to know what you think. Who do you think is gonna win this one? Game 3. Piper Powell on the play here with Izzet Ledger Shredder, a tempo variant against Theodore Jung on Izzet Delver. Woof! This is gonna be great.
Counter. You said not to look at the hand, so I didn't originally, but we see counterbalance in hand for Piper. Creature on the board for Theodore, which is great. Actually, counterbalance in hand for both players.
Wow.
So, yeah, so going back a few years to where we were both all in on Legacy and all in on counterbalance, and here we are. We're back there.
And check this out too, right? We have it in our hand. We're not electing to play it because we're afraid of days here. And this almost makes me wonder, right? Going back to the original deck construction, which is that we know Theo has 4 Wastelands and 4 Dazes. We know Piper has 3 Dazes and 2 Wastelands. So this could just be one of those situations where Theo's like, you know what? I know you don't have Daze here because your deck is built differently than mine. I'm just going to play my counterbalance on curve. That would be sick.
That would be. We'll see. That takes guts to do that.
It does. Okay, we're just
Pass of the turn. So both players ignore the opportunity to play counterbalance on turn 2. And these counterbalances here, should be said, are not as strong as the counterbalances were the Honorog when I were playing 5 years ago with Divining Tops. That's just not the case anymore. But they are still reasonably solid and frustrating to play against. We also have potentially Maddening Hexes coming in, which is alongside Minsk and Boo, the two non-Magic Online cards that are making waves in Legacy right now.
Yeah, I had a chance to play with Minsk and Boo this past weekend, and I have to say, oh my goodness, that is
pretty good, right?
Oh, it's so good, Joe. I mean, we'll talk about this at some other point, but it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, Julian seemed absolutely just over the moon about how strong the card was.
Yeah. Now that being said, I guess one other thing to be aware of is how many cards we have like Pyroblast. So I think I see 4 on the Shredder side, and then I think I see 4 on the Delver side as well. So kind of just a wash there, which means that as a limited resource, it is something. Oh wait, no, I'm miscounting. I see 1 Red Elemental Blast from the Shredder side. So it's actually 5-4 mismatch imbalance, which is a good thing. And it looks like also this is the turn 3 counterbalance with Hydro Blast backup.
Right, it is. So Piper has drawn the Blue Blast, and that is ideal since Theodore does have the Pyroblast to fight. So here we go. Let's see if we can get something on the board here. Piper's hand not aggressive this game, but landing counterbalance does, threaten long-term card advantage over the course of the game.
Wow, and oh my goodness, this is a stack to be proud of. I think that Theo has another copy of Pyroblast in hand. Or is that a Maddening Hex? No, that is a Maddening Hex. Hard to say. We'll see what happens down here. But you basically, I think, whichever player is able to resolve counterbalance and untap with it is in a very commanding position. Combining counterbalance with cards like Dragon's Race Channeler and even just like Mystic Sanctuary is very, very oppressive in this sort of matchup because the curve is so low to the ground. Everything is either a 1 or a 2. So you'll be able to counter a variety of spells.
Okay, Brainstorm for Theodore here, looking for a way to keep this counterbalance off the board. Daze would work, Force would work. In fact, those are the only cards that would work at this point.
Yeah, and I know Theo doesn't know this, but this counterbalance is largely the meat and potatoes of Piper's hand. If he's able to stop it, then we see 1 copy of Murktide and a Mystic Sanctuary. That's not really enough to. It's not like the meaningful way you want to fight in this matchup. You'd much rather have cards like Expressive Iteration and your own Maddening Hexes and things like that.
Okay, so if Theodore is not able to deal with this counterbalance, we know he has his own copy. So this Brainstorm, in some degree, then is also setting up the top of his deck for his own counterbalance next turn. What does he leave on top? We don't know what his options even are, but certainly 2s and 7s, I guess. 7s are unlikely to be less likely to be relevant, but Piper does have a Murktide in hand, and that's a card that would make sense is in the hand. If you play counterbalance with a 7 on top here, that would be pretty kind of a blowout.
Yeah, but I feel like I would never just have anything but a 1 on top here because.
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah, that's solid.
Yeah, there is the Daze.
And now, just good old classic Drago bounce back. Here's my counterbalance. Do you have an answer? No? Well, I know what's on top of my library. Good luck.
Okay, so Piper with a few Murktides in hand, maybe? Only enough graveyard for 1.
And even then, it's like
it's a 2 or 3 spell Murktide. I mean, I don't think you can just do nothing here, can you?
Classification baby Murktide, yeah.
This is looking tough. Counterbalance on the board. Piper knows that Theodore placed a card on top of the deck.
One thing I do like to do generally, like one of the reasons why we haven't seen as much counterbalance, I mean, we're entering another phase where it's slowly resurging, but like counterbalance can be very volatile, right? Like there are a lot of times where, you need to counter 1 critical spell. And then if you get there, good job, you win. But if you don't, that could just spell disaster for, like, let's say like a storm, you flip like a 5 and then you just get comboed off and your card did nothing, right? So like one of the things that I generally like to do is wait until the top of the deck is unknown. But the problem is that, especially with the way this deck is constructed, there's so much selection and manipulation that it'll be very, very hard to find a time when you can actually, properly cement a way out of this thing. Now,
Mhm.
let's see. I mean, even if you Mystic Sanctuary Pyroblast to the top of the deck, that's known information. Then Theo could just put a 1 on top and
Yeah, I don't think I think that's the Unholy Heat in Piper's Graveyard. I don't think that is a Pyroblast.
oh, okay, yeah.
So I think yeah, it's either Mystic Sanctuary back something, or else run out Murktide, or just nothing. And this is, yeah, look at Theodore's just like, oh, there's a counterbalance here. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
I have missed plenty of counterbalance triggers in my life. I'm not afraid to admit it.
This is all that's left. It may seem like there's not that many factors to consider, but this is the whole tournament on the line here for Piper, Powell, and teammates. So putting some thought into this is totally reasonable.
Okay.
What is going to be the play? So it's going to be Sanctuary,
Decline to
not
use the ability.
right, and it's just going to be play Murktide, play a small Murktide, and then have enough to play another Murktide next turn. I think that is what it's going to be here. Here is Murktide. Did Theodore put 7 back on top of the deck? Seems unlikely. No, he did not.
And this is I mean, if I'm in Theo's seat, 100% picking up on a second Murktide Regent.
Yeah, maybe
Being in
even
play.
I think there's even a second and a third in Piper's hand.
Oh, wow.
So that certainly influenced the decision of how much the graveyard can even be afforded to be used here.
Yeah, this is really interesting, like, to figure out the exact science. But I really do like this, right? Make it a 4/4, keep it out of bolt range. We know there's no Unholy Heat to worry about, so we don't need to make it a 7/7. And then we'll just, dish out the heat, play another Murktide region. And honestly, one thing too that I like about these Murktides, you saw in Theo's hand that I think there was a Maddening Hex. That card does nothing when there's an
Mhm.
overwhelming board on the other side of the table. So it's good development.
Right. Okay. Well, Theodore certainly seems to have the card advantage edge here, but the Murktides do hit fairly hard, and if the second one is able to come down here without being dealt with, without the first one being dealt with, then Theodore could find himself in trouble.
Yeah, we're gonna need something like a Pyroblast, an emergency Pyroblast. Actually, there's a decent number of outs here, right? Not just Pyroblast, but also a body of your own.
Right. A Murktide of his own would be great. I see a Ponder. I see a couple Dragon Race Channelers. So, this Murktide is at least going to get to survive for a little while. Oh, actually, it's two Dragon Race Channelers, which
No sorcery.
okay, so they don't have Delirium yet. All right, and Piper found a Ponder, which is great.
Line
If it
flip. Do you
resolves.
believe?
Oh, a
Ooh.
miss. Okay, and it's another counterbalance, which is actually of no value.
I think I saw Force of Will in Theo's hands, so maybe it's of marginal value. But if there's a Murktide region coming into play this turn, uh, if Murktide region comes into play this turn, you could force the Murktide region, and then Piper can't even draw the days here because she knows there's a counterbalance on top. So actually flipping a 2 here is not even the worst.
All right, there's the draw. It's a bauble.
Oh, Bobble's also kind of cool too because it lets you operate on a single turn. You can check the top of Theo's
Ooh, if
deck
this
and
gets
then
dazed here, the bauble could have prevented that. This that hurts.
oh wow.
I feel like, and that was also surveil away at the counterbalance. That's a nice turn for Theodore. Piper's Murktide would be growing by 3. It looks like so yeah. So if the bauble had been played there immediately and then delved away, well, okay, this is where we are.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. This is going just back to show how having extra days is having extra wastelands is it allows you. It does. It lowers your curve, and depending on what's in play, I guess having a lower curve matters a lot. So
Mhm.
Day specifically is a weird one, right? Like I can understand maybe shaving on Wasteland or like cutting Delver of Secrets entirely, but Days is just so uniquely powerful, especially in these blue mirrors, which it's very clear that both of these decks are significantly warped to play around. Um, yeah, Days just going to show why it's such a powerful card.
Mhm. All right, here with the Ponder. So still no answer to the Murktide yet.
Did we find an answer here?
We'll see in a moment.
Okay. Oh, and an expressive iteration. I see. I see another red card. Oh,
Okay.
Pyroblast. Okay.
Yep, this is bad news for Robkin, Riederman, Powell. And here's an attack. 6 across.
Delirium.
Yes, indeed. Piper loses a third of her life down to 12. The draw is a Ledger Shredder. Okay.
Ooh. Oh.
Oh,
Oh.
that's brutal. Okay, so that explains why the bauble was kept, because that was from the Ponder. And so Piper knew that the bauble was going to now allow Connive Trigger. But this iteration, countering the Ledger Shredder.
It's a
Oh,
big deal.
yes, yes, it is.
And I really like how Theo sort of acknowledges that the cards that matter more in this situation, probably expressive iteration, right? Because think about how are you going to get back into this game? You need resources. You need to draw
Mm-hmm.
multiple cards. Iteration's the only card that does that. So why not lock that out? And even if you do Pyroblast or Lightning Bolt my Dragon's Rage Channeler, I'm A, still ahead on board. B, at this point, I don't even care about the counterbalance because it's done its work. You have no cards. What am I countering with it anyways?
Yeah. Immediate attack from Theodore here. Piper loses half her life this time. So we went from a third of her life to half her life, and next attack looks like to be 100% of her life, or perhaps even a much bigger multiple of that. Murktide being cast. This is days on the Murktide, which can be paid for even if counterbalance misses, and I think this is going to seal the deal. I don't know that there's a card Piper Powell could draw here. What would that even be?
Draw
We're
step one time.
mana.
It's a
We're
miracle.
two mana short of Jockle Hops here.
Yeah, I mean, I think
That's it.
this one's a wrap. And
It is done. So handshakes across the board. Connor Mullaly, Maxx Kominowski, and Theodore Jung will be with us for the end of the year championship. And they will be in Atlanta for the Dream Hack in November, as well as taking home the lion's share of the cash. Robkin, Riederman, and Powell, impressive run. The points matter. Zoe Riederman, in particular, I believe, was second on the leaderboard for the year-long standings, maybe vaulting up into first here. So still looking in good position to show up at the end of the year championship for NRG Gaming. But the champions of our Pioneer, Modern, and Legacy event are Mullaly, Kominowski. Good for them. And Jung, impressive showing. Feels
yeah,
good. I mean, it feels good as a player. You get through an event, you sign up for an event, your expectations are never to win. But when you actually do, I mean, that's just fantastic, right?
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, two powerful mages walk into that finals, and one powerful mage team of mages, I guess, walks out. And I agree. Like it's always good. There's a lot of pressure. I think playing in the elimination rounds is very different from playing in your Swiss portions that you're used to.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think they just played really well. You saw Theo play out of his mind. You saw Connor with very strong starts, and that was a good display. And not surprised to see either of the teams in the final. I wouldn't have been surprised if either team won, to be completely honest. So yeah, well done to all six players. Congratulations to Theo, Connor, and Maxx for taking it down.
Yeah. Really, really awesome display. So that concludes the team event. We are going to take a bit of a break now and catch up with Modern in round two in several minutes, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. There's still time. They're in the middle of a round, a good ways into it. So it won't be too long, but certainly if you need a break to make yourself a meal or take a nap or whatever you've got going on, checking on sports, and then come back in about 15 minutes. We'll be here with Modern for the rest of the day. Hope you're enjoying the coverage. Hope you're following along, hitting the follow button on social media. Anurag Das, you were just here for a couple rounds, so I guess you're leaving to go celebrate your birthday. Where's your devotion to Nerve Rage, man?
Honestly, I had last night. I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's only two rounds. I'm used to so many more, and then I came to terms with it. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. Today's just, it's weird because like 30 is a weird number. But I am very glad to be here. Happy to have watched probably the some of the most exciting matches over the weekend, and I'm really hoping the modern 5K is a banger. I'll be watching it throughout the day too. But just a good surprise. I mean, to listen to you once again, and Devin and Becky, yesterday was a treat as well. So looking forward to see how the event plays out.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, if you don't have plans, shoot, maybe we'll keep you in the front of the round. Maybe you can get in here with Devin. I'll take a break and then we'll come in an hour later. Anyway, we'll figure it out. This is NRG Gaming. We'll be back in about 15 minutes to pick up the modern event. Thanks for being here. We'll be back.